And welcome into another episode of the Young Dad Podcast. I'm your host, Jay. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Whether you're outside grilling, inside changing diapers, outside mowing the lawn, or maybe it's that time of day where the kids are finally down in bed and you finally get to listen to your favorite podcast while playing some NCAA college football. Whatever it is you're doing, wherever you're listening, thanks so much for tuning in. Super excited to be with you today. I have such a cool guest with me. I have that bald brother with me. It's been a long time in the making.
Yes, it has.
Between us to get this nailed down, to get this locked in. So I'm excited to have you, man.
Jay, I want to thank you for having me up here. I appreciate the podcast. I see what you're doing over there. I admire it. And, I tell people I want to be like you when I grow up.
Oh, man. Flattery earns you some extra points around here. Flattery earns you some extra points. Well, before we get too far into it, before we talk more about you and the conversation we're going to have today, let me just open it up with our opening sponsor of the podcast. We're going to shout out Forefathers Apparel. If you listen to the podcast, if you followed me on Instagram for legitimately at all over the last year, like legit at all over the last year plus, you've heard me talk about Forefathers. Forefathers Apparel is just fantastic. This team of dad designers looked out there far and wide, looked for the best performing dad material, best performing dad clothing that fit the dad lifestyle. And when they were looking initially, they found nothing. Nothing at all existed. So what they did is they're like, you know what? We're going to create something. So what they created is they took all of our favorite dadisms. Donuts with dad, mowing the lawn, mow glow, meat sweat, baseball dad, gamer dad, dog dad, so many more. Took these dadisms, designed them, printed on these amazing polos, the best performing material, light, breathable, stretchy, cool looking, and obviously to fit the dad bod as well. And they're like, hey guys, this is amazing. Look at this. And they also created an amazing community. They've expanded even more to now where they have daddy and me polos. So dads and your sons, even your daughters, you guys can wear matching polos together, which is so cool. Like there's not many brands that you can do that with, if any, with something so cool and unique. They're conversation starters. They look good. They feel good. They're great for work, great for the golf course, great for the baseball field, great for practice. If you want to have other dads envious of how good you look, Forefathers Apparel will do that for you. You can use the code YOUNGDAD to save 20% at checkout. That's going to be one of the best discounts you can get on the website at any given time, almost. And yeah, go and get yourself a polo. Support the podcast is a great way to support. So without further ado, that ball brother, tell us a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about your platform. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Well, thank you again, Jay. Yeah, so I have been in content creation for about 2 years now. I got into it originally because I was trying to figure out a way to share my story, right? And I felt like a lot of men could relate to things that I've been through in my life, a lot of struggles I've been through, especially Black men or African American men. And so I tended to focus my energy in putting out information that would benefit them and how to navigate their way through heterosexual relationships, work, mental health issues, and parenting.
Hey, that's important. I grew up. My dad's African American. So I'm mixed, biracial. I feel like I talk about that on the podcast a lot, but I'll throw at the same time, like when I mention it and people hear it and then they message me later, they're like, I didn't know that about you. I'm like, did you listen to episode 100 when I literally had my dad on and you could
Right.
see him on the screen? Like, did you miss that part kind of thing? So if you don't believe me and you need the receipts, go check episode 100 of that. But these are important topics. And so speaking to African American men and then also heterosexual relationship and the experience within that, that is something in our country that's taboo, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Like heterosexual relationships are dying, and it's sad because, well, without heterosexual relationships, you don't have babies. Without
Correct.
babies, your population can't sustain itself. And what's going to be happening here come 2050, 2060 is we have a population crisis on the horizon. around the world, not just in the United States, but pretty much through all Western cultures. China's there, almost. China's going to be the first one impacted by it, but baby boomers are dying rapidly around us. Like every what is it every like 10 seconds like someone from the baby boomer generation is passing away right now? Like it's some crazy fact, but our population's not keeping up with that. So it's an uneven ratio, and that's not great
No,
to
it's
say the
unfortunate.
least.
It's unfortunate. I feel like, a lot of, like you said, the conversation needs to be had. And I think part of the problem why we have so many problems with relationship dynamics is because we're avoiding that conversation. We're not trying to talk about it. We're happy with the fact of women being independent, going their own way, and having men just not be seen for what they are, or men being angry too and not being heard. So when you bring up these kind of conversations, the algorithm doesn't like that. It doesn't serve the
Mm-mm.
overall narrative. So these kind of conversations get suppressed. Whereas only thing you see is when we're fighting with each other. You see that.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's interesting you say that. So I put out, so this is coming out later for later release, obviously, but recently I put out episode, and I had the perfect example of this because it happened to my show. Um, Episode, let's see, 128 back on June 28th. Everything was great. My engagement was going up. My impressions were going up. Everything was going up. Everything was just flying up, right? And then I post episode 128. You want to know what I talked about during episode 128?
Hmm.
God, religion,
Oh, yeah,
faith,
yeah.
fatherhood, how it's all impacted, how the Bible and biblical examples. I posted that. And then I followed it up with on July 1st, I followed it up with navigating fatherhood and mental health as a veteran.
Oh, yeah. See,
So I posted two probably of the most, these are two great conversations. So if you would, please go and listen to episode 128 and 129 of the podcast to kind of get those reboosted. But ever since then, so it's been probably about 2 or 3 weeks now since I posted those.
right.
Engagement impressions have literally just taken a pew, YouTube, pew, everything, boom. And so it's taken me about 3 weeks to try to start rebuilding that.
Yeah.
And it's sad because why aren't we talking about faith? We don't talk about faith enough. We need to talk more about faith. We have to. Whether you have a faith or you don't have a faith. Cool. I want to know why you don't have a faith. I want to know why you don't believe. I want to tell you about what I believe. I want you to tell me about what you believe. I want to have a conversation with you. But we're so afraid to have conversations about basic things. Like at the workplace, if you go to work, what are the top 3 things you don't talk about?
Religion and politics
Religion,
and
politics, right?
relationships.
And relationships, right? You don't talk really about gender, uh, unless it's, in a certain direction as well.
hmm
It's like, why? Those things are so important. Like when
Well, I
it
feel
comes to
like
talk,
the
good.
reason why is because people don't like being wrong. In order for there to be a dialogue and conversation, it requires me having an open mind and hearing your side of things, your perspective.
Mm,
I'm coming in with an agenda and I'm like, I don't care. So let's just say I'm not a believer, right? I'm coming
mm,
in with that energy. I don't care what you say. You're not going to convince me. You're coming in with the wrong, agenda. I'm not there to be convinced to change. I want to hear what you have to say. And if we can't talk back and forth, then okay, I see where you're coming from on that. I don't agree with you, but I see where you're coming from rather than coming in, oh no, you're trying to change. You're trying. No, people don't understand what the definition of conversation is. It's about the ego gets in the way, and that causes people to become very argumentative, very hyper aggressive, and it goes downhill very quickly because you can't be wrong. Our egos won't let us be wrong.
hmm Yeah, and part of that problem. No, let me before I even get to that point. Part of that is that you're right. We are afraid. We don't want to be wrong, but we're also not open-minded enough to even have the dialogue. Like, what if you are wrong? You
Right.
know, what if you're wrong to the point that you that you're wrong? Like, wrong is wrong. Like,
Right.
it's okay to be wrong. It's okay for me to be wrong. If you make a point and I'm like, it's okay, I haven't heard that part of it before. Let me go do some research on that. Fact check it. No one wants to be fact checked
Correct.
because everyone's getting their information from who the heck knows where. This is why it's so important to be informed, to listen to a variety of podcasts, to listen to a variety of shows, whether they're a mix of left and right and center, or left and center and right and whatnot, to get a variety of shows, to get a variety of opinions, to get a variety of personalities and insight and takes, and then to formulate your own kind of, not opinion, but your own kind of stance on critical issues, right?
Very good.
Because we're all looking at the same things, right? We're all pissed off at inflation. We're all pissed off at price of gas. We're all pissed off that our groceries 3 years ago or now, or 2 years ago, or even a year ago, are 150% more
Right.
than they were, right? Like, we're all pissed off about the same thing, right? But there's more things that are going to divide us than that. The things that need to bring us together are never going to bring us together because we're so divided.
Yeah.
We're so divided.
I also think social media plays a factor in that too, because now we live
Huge.
in an age of technology where you can have a platform where you can say all that you want to say, and yell at the top of your lungs, and there's nobody necessarily there to, like you said, fact check you or challenge your opinion outside of the comments. Unless you invite somebody up like we're doing right now, having a conversation, you're not going to
Mhm.
have that chance for there to be a perspective sharing. It's just a one camera on me. You're going to hear my rhetoric, and that's it. And I
Yeah.
can disregard the comments. I don't have to answer anything. I'm going to be right all the time in that world, and that's the way social media does. It gives us, it boosts us in a way that it makes us more important than we think we really are.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. It makes us more important than we are because people see you for that moment, they like you for that second, and they, okay, great. But we get this ego boost that we can keep saying these things, and because the clicks keep going up, the likes keep going up, we keep turning up the dial on being controversial just because we want to feel important.
Yeah. And then we're saying things that don't even make sense, you know?
Correct.
And we're saying things that then we're name calling, and then we're making these false accusations. I promise I'm not speaking about anyone in particular for any reason when it comes to that. I promise, guys. Um, but you're 100% right. Like what you said, it's like it gives us this false sense of self
Hmm.
because the people who are doing that are Gen Zers. You know, they're the kids, the 15 to 25-year-old who also are a third of them are taking mom and dad job interviews with them
Correct.
because they have no sense of self. They have no sense of self. So the people watching them have no sense of self. They have no purpose. They have no direction. They have nothing. They stand for nothing. So they absolutely fall for anything. They fall for anything and they believe anything. If it sounds good, they fall for clickbait. They fall into these traps because they stand for nothing. They stand for absolutely nothing. They have no sense of self. They have no purpose. They have, like, just that, really. And so they see a protest. They say, hey, you're accepted over here. Come participate. My point earlier that I stopped myself on was, this all started with participation trophies.
Yep. Yep.
Telling everyone you're the same. Telling no one's more special than you. You guys are all special. Okay, no. 90% of you suck at that sport. 10% of you are actually decent at that sport. Okay,
Right.
10% of you here, great. You guys were the best players. The other ones, here's a piece of paper that says some kind of made up award just to kind of make you not so you don't cry. But, you know, I did that where I gave like my MVP. I had like better awards for some kids and I had lesser awards for other kids where it's just like, oh, you hustle hard or
Right.
whatever.
You
So they're
try.
still excited. But like MVP, like best fielder, best this, best that. I did that on purpose to set some of these kids apart versus other kids. kind
Yeah,
of
but
thing.
it creates an environment, and to your point, it creates the environment where if we're all great, then we're all super sensitive when someone comes along when the real world comes along and tells you you're not that
You're
great.
not.
It's a shell shock. I've been told all my life, I'm average is great when average doesn't cut it all the time. So you learn the hard way. And going back to the social media conversation, confirmation bias is a thing. The reels you see, the doom scrolling is giving you what the algorithm is giving you what you need to hear to satisfy your core beliefs. You don't realize you're not watching objective media. You're watching
Mm-mm.
curated media. It feels objective because, oh, I don't want to look at this ratchetness, but you've been looking at it. And the system says, oh, you must like this, so let me give you more of it. And you see something like, oh my God, the world is flat. Then you're off the races. It
Right.
confirms, oh, it's confirmed now. Is the science says that, and it's like, no, it's just that one particular video.
Yeah. No, and it gives the brain dopamine, right?
Yeah.
Every single one of those likes, it gives the brain dopamine. So every time you see a video you like that aligns with your beliefs, it gives you a little hit of dopamine. Makes you feel good. It makes you feel like you're true, like you were saying. Like your truth is accurate. But it's not. You're being tricked.
Right.
Like I went on a tangent one night. I couldn't sleep and I started finding all these um predator catcher videos. So like all these like child predators were being caught. And so
Yes.
now like I'm like, whoa, this is sick because these were like so interesting how they like did it and how they set them up and everything. And like, I saw one dude pass out. I saw one dude get his face slammed in. I saw one dude get knocked out in a Walmart. I'm just like, what the heck? This is sick. This is awesome. Because it's like, okay, yeah, I want these things to be more known. I want these people to do better. So, of course, I'm going to engage with this content because I support this content. But then I can hop over to the old Twix machine, Twitter X machine. I like to call it Twix. So I hop over to the Twix machine and I can see everything and then some over there. Everything and then some. From like politics to baseball. Like my feed is all kind of weird over there on Twix, which is fine. But you can train your algorithm to support whatever you want to support it. So if I want my algorithm to support one candidate or one side versus the other, I can do that. And then I can spew a bunch of stuff. I can retweet a bunch of stuff. Like you train your algorithm, pretty much and then your algorithm starts to train you a little bit by showing you the things that, okay, well, you engaged with this one video. Here's 3 more that are similar to it. Okay, you like those 3? Okay, let me give you 5. Okay, let me give you 10. So now you're just in this endless cycle of this similar content. You're like, whoa, I must have bipolar disorder or something because all these videos said I have bipolar. Or wow, I must have this
ADHD,
type of
all
thing.
that.
Yeah, like it's like no, you watch some videos from some people who aren't licensed, who don't have any credentials, who just have some lived experience, and these are their symptoms. Maybe, yeah, you have similar symptoms, but that doesn't mean you have the same thing they do.
Correct.
Kind of thing. So don't go around now telling people that you have this certain thing because you saw on TikTok. Like, again, it goes back to what I said. When you stand for nothing, you fall for anything.
Yeah.
Like, you fall for anything. And we are so afraid to have a conversation. Like you said, like everyone's afraid to be wrong when it's okay to be wrong. But you have to have the conversation. You have to be willing and open-minded to have that dialogue to create really so we can all move forward. If we could all come together over the things that are pissing all of us off and put everything else aside. Like you can say what you want about when was the last time our country was truly united?
All right.
When was the last time our country was truly united? From your perspective.
I can't even remember. It's been so long. I feel like I want to go back and say somewhere in the 60s and 70s where I felt, even though we were dealing with civil rights and everything, I still feel like there was a different feeling of America at that point. When I was growing up, I didn't feel the distance I feel now. Like I feel a separation now based on when I was growing up. My parents, I came from a 2-parent household, so I was blessed in that. But even though we still saw racism and we still dealt with things in real time, it still was a community. It felt like to me. now it's like it's very everybody's for themselves. There's no unification. It's like, you know what? Give me instant gratification over unification. I'd
Yeah.
rather get what I want when I want it, and you can't give me that, then get away from me. That kind of thing. It just seems like everyone is more about self nowadays than they were when I was growing up.
Oh, that's true. That's so true. I was gonna say 9/11 was probably the last most recent time when our country was united over something, where we actually stood together, where we
Yeah.
actually came together. But that's before Gen Z, so of course. Now Gen Z's out here trying to cancel anything that they don't like, and then they try to cancel Eminem, and then he drops a new album canceling himself, basically. I don't know if you're an Eminem fan or whatnot, but
No,
Eminem,
this cancel culture drives me crazy. I mean, we
yeah,
live in a society now where you can that's actually a thing now. So
yeah,
someone could be sent into obscurity because of something they said online, and then you could just blacklist them from everything. That's just crazy.
yeah. No, it's insane. And so what happened? And of course, this is a perfect example. Eminem is like the example. How many times has the FCC, censorship, the government, the rap industry, society tried to cancel Eminem over his career?
Yeah, he's been a hot topic for a while.
Since he started, right? He's
Yeah.
always been, kind of the poster child for cancel me. So what? I'm still gonna say what I'm gonna say. You're still gonna love it. It's rap. It's music. It's fantastic. So he dropped a new album. He dropped a song called Houdini like a month ago. Some kid on TikTok went on and said, "I speak for all the Gen Z, and we're canceling Eminem." Thought he was so funny. Ha ha ha. Right? No, no. And then this song comes out by Eminem. After that, Eminem's like, "Okay, cool." Silent for weeks.
Right.
Weeks. Uh, Noted also with this song, it went higher in the charts than anything between Kendrick and Drake.
Really?
Yeah, so it beat out the Kendrick and Drake stuff. It set millennials going crazy, sent us all into a frenzy. It was hot. And then his album drops yesterday. He then, in one of the songs on this album, calls out that kid from TikTok that was trying to cancel him. Man, this album was fantastic. Me and my coworker, we share an office. We're listening to it. We didn't have any clients for the afternoon, so I'm like, "Bro, you want to listen to the new Eminem album?" He's like, "Of course I do, man. Of course I do." So I start playing it, and we're laughing. We're listening to it. I'm like, "Bro, should I?" We work in a therapy office, right?
Okay.
And we live in Washington. Our office is, how do I say this kindly? It's more woke than I am.
Mm.
Um, in a lot of ways. But I'm like, "Bro, should I play this over like the speaker so everyone in the office can hear it?" He's like, "Yeah, man, why not? It would give everyone a great opportunity to practice and use their coping skills." And it's like it gives everyone a chance to, to really see if they're gonna take it the wrong way or not. Like that's up to them. Like that's not on you.
Right.
Like that's how they take it. It's just music. It's just songs.
Not
It's
nowadays. It's
just
not.
lyrics. No, not at all. And it's like, well, if they get offended, then that's on them. I'm like, "Bro, I love you so much right now." And so we're just like
It's
jamming to it
courage.
all.
Love it.
Yeah, I'm like, we're just jamming to it all afternoon in our office. Door shut, of course. Um, we don't want any like youth to like walk down the hall and hear Eminem blasting from the corner. And
Yep. You'd be in HR in two skips of a heartbeat.
yeah, yeah. So it's ironic, but yeah, no, it's like it's not just music anymore. It's not like Eminem clearly sending a message with that album.
Mm-hmm.
With that song Houdini, he literally calls out participation trophies,
Yeah.
um, and everything. But these are things that like messed up. That's where we went wrong, and we can't. I went off on a real tangent there. I don't remember what my point was with all this, but
Folks being afraid to be wrong.
yeah, exactly. Thank you. And so it's like we need to have these conversations because if you and I don't connect on social media because I have some kind of bias or whatever, or if I have some kind of even a bias is like a nice way to say racism, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
Like if I have any kind of bias towards you, which obviously I'm not going to, because then I'm biased against a part of myself and I'm hating a part of myself and then a big part of my family too.
Right.
That's no bueno. That's not good. Don't want to do that
Right.
kind of thing. But there's people who will look at this video, they'll pull it up and they'll look at the thumbnail and be like, nope, skip.
Correct.
Don't want to see a white dude and an African American dude talking to each other. Don't want to listen to that topic. They talk about faith and conversation. Nope, don't want it kind of thing. It's like, okay, the videos that you're trying to skip the hardest are the ones you actually need the most, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You know, when you ever come across like those times in life where, or let me ask you this: you believe in God, right?
Yes.
Okay, those times in life to where you're like, man, something's telling you to read your Bible, to read Romans 9 or whatever, or to read Matthew 3, or to read a certain parable, or to go back into the Old Testament to read a certain verse. Like there's just a book of the Bible stuck in your head for whatever reason, Psalm 96, or I'm just throwing out random stuff.
Right.
And you're like, yeah, but no, not now. Or to pray, or to pray, or to pray, or to pray, or to do something, or to go to church for a certain reason on a certain Sunday. Like, man, I know like next week there's something telling me like I just gotta be there. I just gotta be there kind of thing. And like those are the things that we want to skip, right? We try to push those off as long as we can.
Of course.
But those are the things that are most important to us. Those are the things that are going to have the most impact to us, that are coming from divine intervention. But if we ignore them, then what happens? Our situation doesn't get better. Not
No.
at all. Just stays the same until we make that change, until we watch that video, or we listen to that TED Talk that we're trying to skip, or we listen to that podcast that, man, maybe I should go listen to that podcast with Jay and this other dude talking about faith. Or maybe, man, it would be good for me to learn from a veteran's perspective how hard accessing mental health services is. Or, man, maybe it would be good for me to listen to that, to him, to Jay, and that bald brother, and learn that different perspective from the African American side, from the mixed side as well, from that biracial standpoint. Like growing up, like I grew up in a mixed household. My dad's African American, my stepmom's Latina, and so that was one hell of a ride growing up. Not gonna lie. And now my household, I'm remarried and my wife's Latina. I'm mixed. I'm like, man, I'm going through the same thing again. But now my girls are in the situation to where they're trying to now navigate two different households and things like that. So it's like
challenge.
It's a challenge, but it's a lot of fun at the same time.
Yeah.
It's a good challenge. Sorry,
I would imagine with your background in therapy, you know, the ego, you know this already, the ego is a very dangerous thing. It's a great thing, it's a gift and a curse. You know, and if it's left unchecked, it can take you down a wild path where you don't want to hear from anybody or know anything else different. And going back to your point about God, recognizing that, you know, God's will trumps your want all the time.
All the time, brother. All the time. All the time.
And when you're doing stuff and you have to, sometimes he has to break you all the way down to where you have nothing left but to rely on him for you to finally come out that fog. You're like, you know what, God, I can't do this without you. I'm giving it to you. I just need to get out of this. And then that's when the road begins. When you open yourself up to that possibility and you start going to church, or you read that scripture, or you say that prayer, what have you, you go find that video that may inspire you to change your way of thinking. But you got to be broken all the way down sometimes.
Yeah. No, and that happened to me just a little bit more than a year ago, maybe about a little bit more than a year ago at this point by the time this comes out. But man, I was there. I was so there. Like I was not struggling in like financial terms and whatnot, but I was trying to find a different place and navigate things and move and do all these things, and nothing was working out. I was up at night, nothing was working itself out. I was just getting desperate. I was just like, man, nothing's going to work out. Nothing's going to come through. Everything I'm trying is falling through. And I'm just like, man, what's going to change? And then I'm praying more, a little bit more diligent on reading through my Sunday school lesson, because I teach 5th grade Sunday school at church during the school year. And I'm like, man, nothing's what do I need to do? I like dived harder into ministries I'm a part of. Dive into my relationship a little bit more. I started seeing one of the pastors every other week just for guidance. I didn't know what I was seeing him for. I was just thinking, man, I need to go see him. Uh, I need to set up an appointment to go see somebody and talk to somebody about. I don't even know what I'm going to be talking about, but I'm just kind of here
See what
for
comes
some
up.
to yeah, and that's what happened. Stuff just came up. I got the direction I didn't even know I was looking for. Um, and the examples like from scripture, like in everything, just the teachings I was able to get in those meetings were just like powerful. And like they weren't at all what I was looking for, but
Right.
they were everything I was looking for at the same time.
Yeah.
And so it's just it's awesome how it works. It's so cool how it works, and it's so needed. And you can't. And I've been feeling that lately too, to where like my will was one thing, right? My will was something what I wanted done, what I wanted to happen, what I was hoping for wasn't at all what was happening. It took my brother when I was talking to him about it, I was really disappointed about something and something didn't happen. And he
Hmm.
told me, well, he's like, well, brother, just God has something better for you. There's something better waiting for you.
Right.
And I'm like, you know what? You're right. Like, this wasn't meant to be for some reason, because some reason beyond what I know, but it means that there's something better. Like, there's something better coming. There's a bigger, better door. I just posted on Threads yesterday about this actually. I'm like, when God slams one door shut on you that you wanted open, guess what? There's a bigger door just off to the right that you're missing, but it's literally right in front of you too.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, man, you're right. Like, take a lot of reassurance in that. Take a lot of reassurance in that. Like, yeah, just this door closed, but there's something better. There's something better waiting. I don't know what it is. I don't know when it's gonna happen, but there's something better out there coming. And I just had to tell myself all through my divorce and when I was single, like something this all for a reason, something better. Now my wife just absolutely incredible. Um, just everything she is, everything she does, everything she is to the girls, man, just everything's just so much better.
Yeah.
But I had to wait. I had to wait a long ass time, a long time. It felt like even though it was two years, man, that felt like a long 2 years. Uh, until we got together and whatnot and met and everything. But it was would I say it was worth it? Absolutely. Would I wait that long again? Heck, I would wait even longer, knowing that there is always something better coming. There is always something better coming. And I can 100% say that without a shadow of doubt that when one door closes, like you said, your wants will never trump God's will. God's will is always better for you, whether you want it to be or not. It's going to be better than what you could have imagined.
And that's what the hard part is, I think, because we're naturally inclined to want to have control over everything. And we're also inclined to be very impatient. To sit back and say, okay, like for example, I know for a fact there was some jobs I applied to fairly recently. And I got so attached to the outcome that I wanted this job. I knew this was going to be the job to turn things around and get me where I wanted to be financially and get my life together and allow me to do all these things I had lined up beyond that job. And then the job didn't come through. And at first I got upset and was angry about it. But then my girlfriend reminded me that, you know what, like you said, this is happening for a reason. You got to get away from attaching yourself to it and say, you know what, maybe this is not what God has for me. Because my mother used to always tell me, you can't block what God has for you. You can't block your blessing unless you allow your ego to get in the way. But you know what I'm saying? What God has for you, you can't stop that. It's not going to happen when you want it to happen. You got to stop trying to make it happen and give it to Him, surrender it to Him and say, you know what? It's your will. When it happens, it happens. Give me patience. Give me patience to understand that I'm not going to have it when I want to have it or when I feel it's convenient for me. It's always going to be when it's best for me when you give it to me.
100%. And that's something I taught my Awana kids. So another thing I'm involved in is Awana. Um, it's another church program for kids and whatnot,
Okay.
a weekly thing to where they come and they play games, but then they also dig into the Word. And I was teaching council time this last Awana season, and it was great. It was super fun. And one thing that I started teaching from the very beginning, because it was like relevant to Unit 1, but one of the common themes that I kept all year was that the picture of our lives already painted.
Right.
Like the canvas, the masterpiece that is our life, it's already painted. It was painted before we were even born, right? Every choice we make, every step we would take, every breath we would take, everything we would say and do was already painted into this picture, right? Every blessing that was going to come was already painted and put into this picture, right?
Right.
But we get so zoomed in. We zoom in on this picture, right? Like this is a canvas. This is a big, beautiful canvas, right? The most big, beautiful painting you ever seen.
Mosaic.
Exactly. And so many details, right? But we zoom in. We have a tendency in our lives to zoom in so hard on a certain part of it, and we get stuck on it. We're like, man, this is like the best part of it. Man, this is like it right here. Like I got to zoom in, like so on and so forth. But we forget there's so much more painting over here. There's
Correct.
so much more up here. There's so much more down here. Like there's so much more to it. And so that painting is what's already painted. So what's already going to happen? It's already planned. You can't stop it. Like you said, you can't stop that blessing. Of course, things you can get in your own way of it.
Correct.
That's going to happen. We're human. That's what we're meant to do, essentially. We're meant to get in our own way of sorts until we be like, you know what? I'm going to get out of this way because I can't do nothing. I got to give this up. Like this, shoot. Obviously, I'm wrong. Okay, show me I'm wrong again. Go ahead. Show me that sixth sense of humor you got. Come on, go ahead.
Exactly.
Man, and God, He works in mysterious ways, but He also works in very, very mean, ironic, hilarious, comical ways that just make you shake your head sometimes. You're like, man.
Oh, he has sense of humor all day.
Yeah.
There's been occasions where I look up like, I see you. You're having a good time with this one right here. Because
always just having a good time with it.
You realize, yo, you can't make this stuff up.
Mm-mm. No, and so it's like, part of everything we do, we got to give it like when you said your job search, like I was going through that job search, like for some reason I just kept having this feeling, like go and look, like just look what's out there. I found some things, I applied to them. I'm like, sure. I mean, I looked, I did what I was feeling. I looked, nothing happened from those jobs, but more stuff happened within my own line of work,
right?
My job that I'm already at. The opportunity that I wanted to look for elsewhere came back right in front of me. I'm like, God really got this one messed up. Like this one's messed up. Like I was feeling in my heart to go and look elsewhere, but then I do that, but then everything comes back just right in front of me. So what is going on here? Come on now. You can't make it too obvious. He leads you to the water, but he doesn't tell you how to drink. And when you do drink, sometimes you're going to choke.
Yeah. Drink too fast.
Yeah. Drink way too fast, and we got to be patient. Got to let it. That picture's already painted. We just got to keep zooming out a little bit, find where we're at, find where X marks the spot right now, find where the thumbtack is. Because, in the mosaic, if you put one little speck on it, and where that little speck that I'm talking about here is where we're at in life right now, it's going to be real hard to find. Yes. But you zoom out, man, that picture's beautiful.
There's just so much life amazing to live. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
So, all right, man, this is already good, and we are jumped right into it. But tell me here, when it comes to African American men, heterosexual relationships, and let's say parental alienation, for example, how does that look within the African American community and for heterosexual men? Because I know what it looks like for Caucasians and in Washington State, in a very left-leaning state, but specifically in the African American community, what does that look like?
I mean, I don't imagine it's a whole lot different than other races. I feel like the problem is that it doesn't get talked about enough. I think that people tend to just presume the fact that, okay, if there's a separation in the household, then the father must have done something wrong to warrant the separation. It's never a thing of, well, let's find out what happened. Was it a situation where they both played a factor, or was it one side or the other? I'm not saying that the husbands are always, or fathers are always innocent. I'm just saying they're not always guilty. And society pushes that narrative that somehow the court systems are a reflection of that narrative, because the laws are favored to protect the woman, the mother, and the child, where the father or the husband or whatever is left to just have to pay, and they get skewered because they're male. Whereas it's harder to go to court as a husband or as a man and have a mother deemed a bad mother. You got to come in with all kinds of evidence. You got to get Maury Povich. You got to come with all kinds of investigations to say this woman is unfit to be a mother. But for her but she can say one thing about being unfit to be a father, and that's it. The bar is very low when it comes to saying a man is unfit. Okay, you know what? He's not. Yeah. And I think that people don't take into account when feelings get hurt, that tends to end up impressioning on the child. The child takes on the feelings of the mother or the father, whoever the parent is, and they project it onto the other parent. They hear the stories that their mother or father's angry about what happened between the other mate. They don't like what happened, so they embody that. And then when they meet with the other parent, if they get to even meet with the parent, it comes out, you hear it's a smaller version of the other person. You're dealing with your ex-wife through your child. And you realize he or she is spitting back the same vitriol that you would get from your ex-wife or ex-husband. And I think it's taken for granted. And a lot of things that I push on my platform is, well, one of the biggest things I push is self-awareness. You have to be accountable for your own actions. We got to stop pointing fingers at somebody else saying, hey, it's my ex's fault why we're not together. Or she did this, she did that. Well, sir, you were there too. So you weren't just passive in the relationship. What part did you play? And how did your actions or behavior lay the groundwork that allowed your child to even think of the possibility of you not being what they would have seen as a model parent? See, in my experience, I didn't do the best with fathering my kids when they were young. I didn't know how to be a father. I didn't understand what it meant to be one. And when I got married, both times, I only took what I thought was supposed to be done based on what I saw my father, how he was treated us. And not realizing that there's a level of selflessness that needs to be inherent if you're going to be a parent. You can't move in a way like you're single. You can't move in a way where it's all about you. You have to now take on a mindset of, it's no longer about me. It's about making sure the child or us, it becomes a collective. And that was a hard thing for me to get over when I was younger, going through those marriages, is that I would revert back to protecting myself. And when it came to the kids, I didn't connect very well because I wasn't self-aware. I wasn't taking accountability for my being distant, for my being selfish, for my lack of maturity that I needed to have. And unfortunately, having to go through the divorces sobered me up very quickly and had me learn the hard way that, you have to be present in your child's life as much as you can. Now, it's harder to do that because the damage has been done. So now I'm operating from inside the hole, trying to get myself out of that hole. And it's just not easy when you have that on top of a co-parent who is already angry, still holding grudges or being bitter, and now using the child as a pawn because they know that that's the only thing you care about is the child's well-being. If I didn't care about the kid, then you'd have nothing over me to hold over me. But because I love my daughters, they're used as weapons against me to make me feel bad, miserable, and terrible. Granted, again, like I said, I'm not taking anything away from me having had a factor in the situation. But now, as a man who's matured, trying to do better and have a better relationship, I don't see why it's so difficult to even foster that. But apparently, that seems to be more challenging, and then thus the parental alienation I talked about.
No, I was gonna let you keep preaching there, man. I was gonna let you keep going. But no, you're so right. Like, just kind of recapping on all that, like, the self-awareness piece is huge.
Yeah.
That's what really took it to that next level for me. Like, that self-awareness is also self-love, and it's also self-love is also taking that responsibility. It's self-responsibility.
Right.
Self-love is, and this is like a Will Smith like motivational video that's on YouTube that I've listened to. I probably gave that thing so many of its views, man. You're welcome to that creator. But no, honestly, like you have to be able to, and this comes in all aspects of like fatherhood, really. Like you have to be self-aware. Like you have to know about yourself, like where your shortcomings are, where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are. And oh boy, if you ask God to show them to you, he'll show them to you. He
Correct.
will. Don't doubt. He'll be like, "Oh, yes, let's go. Let's show you where you suck." Um, but I'm also going to show you where you're great at the same time. He won't just do it. He's going to have fun with it, though. If you ask him that, man, be careful what and how you ask God for certain things, because
He will give it to you.
he'll give it to you. And if you ask him just, show me where I'm weak, oh, he's going to show it to you. Um, make sure you ask him for both. Show me where I'm weak, but also show me a couple things I'm good at too. Be gentle, be nice. But uh, it's you got to be self-aware. You got to be self-aware. You have to be willing to take that ownership for your part
Correct.
in the relationship, in raising the children, in the marriage, in the divorce. Yes, were you the one that caused the final straw? Maybe. Were you not? It's not always the dad's fault. 100% right. That's common across just all dads. It's not always our fault.
Right.
We get painted as a bad guy, especially if you live in a left-leaning state.
Yep.
But where this really comes from my research, is that it really comes from when the welfare system was initiated. A lot of this came from the welfare system to when mothers were incentivized to have single-parent household, to
Correct.
where they were given money, and a lot of it comes from the welfare system. And, I'll probably get canceled and shadow banned again for this whole podcast, but that's fine. Go ahead. But that's the truth. Go look it up. Look at what the welfare system did, the date when the welfare system was implemented, when it started. Look at the immense decline in two-parent households to single-parent household. Look at the divorce rate spiking along with that. Look
Mm-hmm.
at all these other factors, single-parent households. Look at the drop in education, the divorce rates. Look at all these things. They all correlate to that because it drove division. It drove reliance on the government. It drove all the right things in the right direction for the government to get more control because we were too united. We were
Correct.
too united as a people, kind of like you were saying earlier when you were growing up. We were a little bit too united. Government had to be like, let's split this up a little bit. Let's create some division. Um, and so, you know what? That's what they did. They did it. They're still doing it today.
Yeah.
You look at the geopolitical landscape. I talked to a woman on the podcast. I'm not going to say who,
Mhm.
but it's a recent episode that is either coming out before or after this. I'm not going to say who it was, though. I talked to a lot of ladies, but she's Jewish, right?
Okay.
And she said she's never been more scared to walk outside than she is right now in her entire life.
That's
She's
sad.
never been more scared to go to the grocery store. She's never been more scared to wear anything representing her faith and her culture because she's afraid if she does, she's going to get mugged.
Yeah.
And, it's sad. Like, how often have, I'll say our people felt like that forever.
Yeah. I was gonna say that
Forever.
we
They
sympathize with
still
that
do. We
because, and
still
yet a
do.
lot of places we still feel concerned about walking outside or going to neighborhoods, and it's what's even worse is that is going into our own neighborhoods. We still feel that way. It's not
Yeah.
just going into a white neighborhood or a non-black neighborhood. It's just even in your own community, you don't feel safe.
Yeah. It's like, and I carry that torch in a couple different ways, right? Like, I carry it for our people, right? Knowing, like, okay, like, it's for some reason, African American, like, grandmas, they look at me and they're like, "Oh, what's up?" Like, they just know. Like, they look at me. I don't know
Right.
what it is, but an African American grandma can look at me and be like, "Oh, yeah, you mixed." I'm like, "Excuse me, ma'am? Um, what kind of voodoo Rasta magic do you got going on?"
Yeah.
And they just get it. But it's like, I'll carry that torch, but I also carry it as, like, I'm 6 foot, like, 200 pounds. Like, I'm not small.
Right.
Like, I also carry that as just, like, being a white man. I'm like, bro, I'm the gentlest freaking man ever. Like, I'm a girl dad. Like, I
But
ain't gonna.
people see that man and they just assume the presence.
Yeah, they just assume the worst. Like,
Yeah.
they just see a man by himself with kids. It's like, oh, it must be his weekend, or it must be this, or everyone just has these even other men, like, have these preconceived ideas. And it's like,
Yeah.
when did we well, I'll tell you when we became the enemy, but again, it's already going to get canceled for this, but when everything with LGBTQ plus rights, like, took off. And I love gay people, nothing against gay people. There's nothing wrong with being gay. My older sister's gay, nothing wrong with it.
Right.
But when men became the enemy was when there's a correlation. Just saying, there's a correlation. There's causation here.
Okay.
When all that really spiked in the early 2000s, that's when men started to become more of the enemy. That's when normal men, white men, became more of the enemy. Unless you're gay, then you're fine, kind of thing. But if you're a normal heterosexual male and you approach a woman at, let's say you go to anywhere really, and you approach a woman, the woman's going to get scared and tense just because you're a man.
Right.
Right. But if you're a gay man and they can tell, like, you're a gay man, they're going to be relaxed. They're going to be fine.
Yeah, I agree with that. There is a bit of a dynamic when you based on how you approach them and what they read from your initial outer coding,
Mm-hmm.
if you will.
Yeah. So there's all these preconceived notions for not just black men, for white men, for heterosexual men, for really just fathers in general. And it's unfortunate because it presents itself. Mothers unknowingly, well, some of them know exactly what they're doing. I won't even say
Yes.
unknowingly.
Yeah.
A lot of them know exactly what they're doing, how they're talking about their kids' father. Fun fact, in Washington State,
Mhm.
when you file your divorce papers, there is a clause in those papers and in your parenting plan that you will not speak negatively about your child's other parent in front of them, or you can be held in contempt.
That sounds cute, but I'm pretty sure I want to see the cases where they actually enforce that rule.
I've seen it. I've
Oh,
seen it.
really? Okay.
I've seen it. Yeah, it's a real deal. I've seen a mother get destroyed. I've seen mothers get destroyed in court to where they don't have the credibility, to where they, things that they submit and hold and their lawyers get shut down because this mother just making stuff up.
Oh,
They're
wow.
held in contempt so many times and they get shut down, even here in Washington State. Granted, I live in, like, it's kind of how it is for all these states on the West Coast.
Mhm.
Is like they have clusters of blue surrounded by red,
Right.
like, all around them. Like, there's a cluster. That's where the cluster of people are. That's where the most delegates are going to come from, is blue. But then everything else, not
Is
everything else,
red.
but a good chunk of it's red. That goes between Washington, Oregon, and California. Even Colorado is the
Wow.
same. Like, there's just these clusters in these major cities of blue that take all the delegates, but then the majority is actually a little bit more center, maybe a little more center left, maybe a little bit more center right, or maybe just center. So it's interesting to see that landscape. But
Well, that's impressive to hear. 'Cause I didn't think I would ever. Granted, I don't do a lot of research in that the family court systems across the country, but to hear that is a thing somewhere in real time is actually it warms my heart to know that someone's holding people accountable for being detrimental to the child.
mm,
I'm
and
I'm not saying that all men are innocent, so I don't want people to walking away with that. I'm not saying that. What I'm
100%,
saying is
100%.
people make choices, men and women alike, and we say things to our children that can be detrimental or devastating to the other parent. And we don't take into account that we're feeding that negativity into them rather than trying to just keep it very neutral, be very Switzerland, if you will, with it, rather than trying to take a side.
Yeah. And the thing with that is that you feed that into your child, but your child's half of that person.
Correct.
Like, your child's half of that person. So if you're feeding hate towards the other person into them, and children 100% of the time are taught hate. They are every child, everyone that's ever been hated anyone for anything, for any reason why, has been taught how to hate.
It's a learned condition.
Yeah, it's not natural. It's
No.
not natural. We're made in the image of God. God loves everyone. Jesus loved everyone. He literally said to the woman at the well, let he who without sin, let he who has not even thought about adultery in your mind, let him cast the first stone. Everyone dropped their stones, walked away. They knew.
Yeah.
They knew. No one's perfect. We all struggle, right? Like no one's perfect, but we're taught to have this hate. Everyone that was gonna cast those stones at that woman, to the woman at the well, the adulterer. I'm thinking, about, is that right? The woman at the well, the adulterer?
Yeah, I think
Or
so.
I'm about to say, am I getting two parables mixed up? Because man, those parables in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they all get
They kind of
fuzzy.
overlap a little bit. Yeah.
Because they're all back to back. They're all
Right.
back to back to back to back. Which is awesome for when you're reading through Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, because you can read the parable in 4 different places, and it's so cool because it's all just a little bit different.
But
The
it sounds the
account,
same message.
same message, but it's all just a little bit different. So you can see how the Spirit was speaking to each of them and how they're each individual people. But I digress there. But, you know, I'm sure there were gay people back then too. They
Yeah.
didn't talk
Sodom
about
and
it.
Gomorrah.
Yeah, but did Jesus call them out and kill them?
No.
No. Did he hate anybody? No. So does the Bible preach hate at all?
No.
No. Some churches, some pastors, unfortunately, do because again, they created their own self-fulfilling prophecies. They created their own things, their own, they got the people to listen to them enough to where they can teach the same hate and spread the same hate.
Yeah. They
But
twist the words around to
they
fit
twist the
their
word
agenda.
exactly. But a child's not taught to hate. But if you're telling your child to hate the other parent for any reason why, then low key you're telling them to hate themselves for the same reason.
Yep.
When you say, "Oh, you're just like your father. Oh, you're just like your mother," and they can see that frustration, it's like, so you're frustrated at me then?
Right.
And then that gets internalized, and then that internalization turns into depression, anxiety,
Self-hate.
damages your relationship, turns into self-hate, which leads them into needing therapy,
Mm-hmm.
which turns into you guys needing family therapy, which turns into a long road to forgiveness. Just better to, if you don't got nothing nice to say about your child's other parent, just, don't say it in front of them. Save it for when you can call up that bald brother and be like, "Yo, man,
That's how I
baby
feel.
mom, freaking tripping today.
Right.
You're outside, kids are in bed, they can't hear you, they're not in earshot, they're not going to get a piece of it, and just save it. Send text messages, whatever you got to do. Send it to that trusted source so you can still get it out, but then it's not going to be heard and affect the children."
And that's the key right there is recognizing that it's okay to have these feelings and be frustrated and want to vent.
Oh yeah.
But you got to be careful about how you do it. What happens is people don't think about that. They just feel like I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say, and I gotta say it, or they don't bother to make sure they're not within earshot of the kid. You can feel how you want to feel about me. That's fine, and you might be right in some of what you're feeling, but it's unfair to the child to portray a picture that casts a bad light. Because if the shoe was on the other foot, you would feel the same way. Because I can make up all kinds of stories, and if I want to make up stories and throw salt in the child and make him and push them against you, but who does that serve? It serves me being selfish, trying to make it about me. It's always about the child, always, and we lose sight of that all too often.
100% should be like, especially in divorce and co-parenting, like it's 100%. Even in marriage, like marriage has a different dynamic to it, of course, but in co-parenting, at least raising children, co-parenting, like it should just be about the kid. What's best for the kid. Should, exactly. I don't like shooting on people, but it should just be about the kid. It should just be about what's their best interest here, kind of thing. And how do we attain that best interest together? It doesn't have to come in long, deep conversations, because you don't got to have those no more. You don't need to have those no more. There ain't no purpose or rhyme or reason for them. But if you need to have a transactional conversation, like, about it, then have that transactional conversation. Keep it short, keep it sweet, keep it to the point. Don't digress. Yada yada yada. Get in, get out. Bada bing, bada boom.
And that's the way it should be. But again, as humans do, we make it about make it about ourselves. So a conversation that starts out transactional as you put it, digresses into, oh, see, this is why I left. This is what you're doing. This is what you're doing. And it becomes a berating rather than, okay, I'm just here to talk about the child. I don't have no issue with you. I'm not trying to convince you to fall in love with me again. No, I'm just here to address this, but you want to skew it because you got something you want to say.
Yeah. You have your agenda, and my agenda is I just want to figure out what the heck we're doing for the kid. I don't want to hear all that.
Right.
Like, I just want to get to
then
the
you're
point
being difficult. You don't want, and then you get the hang up. It's like, okay, now it's on you because you don't want to allow them space to vent to you about you. You're the problem.
Yeah, I don't get. You can vent to someone else. I know you got plenty of people to do it to. Go and do it to someone else. Don't save it for someone else. I don't care. I don't want to hear it.
And that's the problem. That's what they get angry about. They want to be heard.
Yeah, well, go be heard by someone else. I don't want to hear you. I don't need to hear you. I don't have to hear you anymore. That's why the hell we got divorced. I don't want to hear you no more.
Right.
I don't got to hear you. I don't got to be that nice to you. I don't got to hear you. I don't got to do all that shit for you. I don't got to do none of that.
Right.
Kind of thing. All I got to do is worry about my kid. You keep my kid's best interests at heart. I don't got to do all that stuff. Kind of thing. So just make sure that's, and that's the point of it here. But
yeah.
Cool. Any last thoughts or anything you want to add to any of these points of the conversation so far before we get wrapped up here?
No, I really appreciate the dialogue. I appreciate understanding perspectives. That's why I got into this content creation business, because I want to understand what people think. I know I'm not the only person who's going through what I've gone through, but I feel like what's missing in these streets, if you will, is people recognizing that you're not alone. Most of us out here feel like we're by ourselves. We're the only ones going through something. And the reality of it is you're not. There's people out here like myself, like Jay, like some of you that are listening, you've been through situations like this. You can share your story and someone will be able to say, you know what? That's what I went through. I like how they handle that. Let me cherry pick from that and use that information for my benefit. It's about community at the end of the day for me.
100%. No, 100% agree with that. No, I'm going to get us wrapped up here. And then I have one final question before we wrap up.
Okay.
I'm going to hit this cool beat a little bit. So if you love these beats that I played at the beginning and at the end of the podcast here, then you're going to love the Podbeat app. Podbeat app will take any podcast you listen to and it will turn it into a musical experience. If you're a gym rat like me, if you can't tell, I'm like freaking yoked out of my mind. Or if you like to run, or if you just like to keep a cadence in whatever you're doing, or if you just need to give that podcast that you're listening to that helps you get through your day a little extra oomph, Podbeat's got you covered. From lo-fi to trip-hop to trap to EDM and many more genres in between. You can add a beat to any podcast and turn it into a musical experience. And I love it. I use it. I talk about it. I give you a little demo of the beats here. What I can do is I can turn the volume way up. And that'll still allow you to hear my voice. It'll still allow you to hear what I'm talking about. It'll cancel out that annoying music at the gym, those car sounds going round and round around you. Or if you need to mellow out a little bit, you need to turn it way down, and you just need it nice and low, then you can adjust the settings and sliders as well. However you want to do it, whatever you need and whatever beat you're needing, Podbeat has you covered. You can find Podbeat along with every other person I work with, every other brand I support within the description of the episode. You can get Podbeat wherever you get your apps, App Store, Google Play Store, wherever it is. Get it, use it, love it. It's fantastic. You can find all my other ones in my description of the episode, links, all the awesome stuff down there. It's fantastic. 100% recommend checking it out. I've got you covered for a variety of needs, clothing, a trainer. I got plenty of stuff down there. Go check it out. Anyways, without further ado, one last final question here to close us out. And the final question is, you kind of already answered it, so I'm going to make you go a different direction here.
Okay.
But let's say a young father comes to you, 20 to 25. I became a dad when I was 20. I was barely 22. I was like 3 months into being 22 when I became a dad.
Okay.
So I was super young. My brother, he became a dad when he was 19, 20 years old. So we became dad super young. Super young.
Okay.
And so let's say a young father comes to you, just had his first kid, scared out of his
Mhm.
mind, nervous, anxious, just all the feelings you feel when you become a dad for the first time, but also mix that with not even having a fully developed brain, right?
Right.
As a man, because our brain don't fully develop till we're 25. So it comes to you, he's like, "Bald brother, you can't even get the words out." What kind of advice, what kind of things what's a couple things you would say to him to kind of calm his soul a little bit, to ease his mind?
Well, first thing I would say is, just take a moment and breathe because it's a lot to take in. Understand that you're about to become a father. The second thing is understand the assignment, right? You've now moved into a space where it's no longer about you. You've lived in a good part of your adult life focusing on whatever it is you need. You now have to shift your focus and make it so that it's whatever the child needs, whatever your family needs, if you decide to stick together with the mother. But understanding that you have to be selfless. You can't keep moving in a way of, I'm going to do what I want to do regardless. You got to think about, okay, how is what I'm going to do going to affect my child? How's that going to affect their upbringing? Is me going to the club tonight going to affect my child having milk or having, formula? Is me buying this expensive car that I want to get because I can afford to get it? Is it going to take away from things my child needs, clothing, activities, schooling? You have to like to going back to the picture metaphor you used earlier. You have to zoom out and see that there's a bigger mosaic to take into account, and not focusing on that little tidbit of point where you are. You got to see now there's a whole nother road now you got to get on, a whole nother journey you're about to take, and it's going to require you being selfless, self-aware, being accountable, being responsible, and being the model of what you want your child to be. If it's a boy child, you want to be the man you want the boy child to grow up to be. If it's a girl child, you want to show her how she should be treated by any man she meets as an adult.
100%. I can't argue that at all. It's perfect. It hits the nail right on the head and fully encompasses exactly the exactness right there. That hits it. You got to put yourself aside and you got to be who you want them to become. You set the
Right.
example. You lead the way. You are what they are going to become. They become who you are, what you set out to be. You lay their foundation. Whatever your
Correct.
foundation is that you lay for them, that's what they're going to build off of. So build them a strong foundation and let them have something to grow off of. So, uh, man, thank you so much for this conversation today. Thank you so much for joining me. Thanks for sharing your perspective, your story. Thanks for preaching with me,
Thank
getting
you,
into the
Jay.
weeds with me. If we both get canceled, at least we'll be canceled
Hey,
together.
cancel together. Yes.
Canceled together. We'll rise up again together. We'll build back stronger, build back better.
Absolutely.
But thank you too much to our listeners today for listening, to bearing with us. We hope that something we said inspired you. We hope it built your testimony. We hope it built some part of you as a father, as a listener, as a mother, maybe as just an individual, whoever you are listening to this. We hope you gained something from this podcast today. I know I gained something from it. I know I'm walking away feeling more inspired, more enlightened, all the words that rhyme and go with synonyms with that and whatnot. So we hope you did that as well. We hope you enjoyed mowing the lawn so you can sit out there, stand in that old dad stance and admire it. Hope that you got the meat sweats from eating that delicious meat that you grilled. And hopefully those diapers are changed and it's time for you to take out the trash now. So with that, thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for being with us. And we'll see you right here next time on the Young Dad Podcast.